Hello, hello to all of our friends in Parent Tween Village. We just had a phenomenal conversation with Catherine Tyson-Sewell, who is actually tuning in with us from the Cayman Islands. And we had a phenomenal conversation about self care, how to navigate it, and why it is so important as you raise kids, especially through those teen and tween years. And Catherine, one bit I didn't mention to you is a friend of mine actually tuned in to that whole conversation that we had. And during the intermission, if you will, between that chat and this one, she messaged me. She's like, "That was so good.
Oh
What a
wow.
great topic. Thank you. She learned a ton. So thank you
Good.
for what you offered." And as we
Thank you.
continue with this conversation, we're going to be talking more within the global awareness perspective about parenting styles in different cultures and how we can borrow some of those concepts from those cultures to raise our kids. So let's start. What are some of the basics? Like, I know you're in the islands now. I know you've lived in Miami and you've been in Boston. What are some of the differences that you see across different cultures, specifically to life with teenagers? Let's start there.
Okay, so I think, well, in all honesty, and I lived in New York as well. My mom moved
Okay.
around also. She was in love with the state. She wanted to knock the dust of the Cayman Islands off her feet from the time I was like 3 years old. So
Okay.
she's in Seattle right now, living her best life.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, for sure. So I think the difference with, in all honesty, with America versus the islands, and when you say America, that's very broad because there's so many
For
different
sure.
cultures in America, and
Absolutely.
the culture that you're raised in, or the culture that your parents are from, that's the culture that you're raised in. So
Hmm.
trying to keep the balance with that. So, I used to teach, I taught school in Miami, and I taught primarily a school that had primarily Haitian American students. And so, that was a big struggle for them being raised as Americans, but by Haitian parents. And so the Haitian parents, they had the way they would do it in Haiti, and they're American kids. So they're like, and just interacting with Cuban American,
Hmm.
students and stuff. So it's very different. So the multiculturalism of America is very different. If you're going to the government school here, which is the public school, you're under kind of that regime. So it's not really that inclusive of cultures. It's more,
Okay.
this is our culture. This is how we do things. Period. So I find like that's very different in the States. So the the benefits of that are one thing, and then the benefits of the States are another thing. So it is nice to kind of be able to be your own person, but it's also nice to be able to connect yourself to a particular way, right? And so
Hmm.
parents here will be a lot more stricter. They're a lot more strict, and
Hmm.
a little, I guess we'd call it more controlling, uh,
Okay.
because I think you guys, or America had this thing, maybe 10, 20 years ago, where you couldn't even, you can't beat your children. Well, the islands are still
Mhm.
beating their kids.
And we're not necessarily advocating permanent harm, just to be clear.
No, like I had my, because I'm Americanized, so I'm not beating my kids. You can't beat my kids. So I had them
Hmm.
in a private school, and they come home and say, "Yeah, the principal says he's gonna beat us tomorrow," and I was like, "What?" And so I go down to the school, like, "Excuse me, you're not gonna beat the kids, okay? Not them. You can
Hmm.
talk to me, and we can work this out, and we'll figure out how they're supposed to do what they need to do. But don't beat my children. Don't you dare."
Right.
And
Right.
so yeah, so that's one of the differences for sure. That it's a little more stricter in the islands,
Uh-huh.
and yeah, the expectations are, children are children. And so the children will tend to rebel a little bit more too because of that. So they'll be a little more sneakier, and
In
where,
the islands, you mean?
yeah, in the islands.
So where's that line, do you think? And I know that there isn't a singular line that, is a definitive line for every kid, every family. How do we find that line? Because even, I mean, you've got 4 kids now, right? 3 that are full grown that you've like
Right.
successfully done it. And then
Right.
for whatever reasons of craziness, some might say you opted to have a new one. You have a
Right.
1-year-old. Um, how do you find that line? I know that's something that I hear from a lot of people of like, my one child is more mature, more ready, more whatever, but my other child at the same age isn't at the same place in either
Right.
direction. So what would you offer to parents having seen a very strict approach and a more lenient approach? How do they navigate that and figure out what is the right answer for them in their family for their kids?
Yeah, I think all roads for me lead back to the parents. All roads.
Mhm.
Absolutely all roads. At my age and being able to have an experience starting school in the Cayman Islands and then going to New York when I was 5 for 3 years, and then coming back to the Cayman Islands and going to school and going to Miami while I was a teenager and coming back as a teenager to the island. I've had a really rich opportunity to see, just the way people do things differently. I've
Mhm.
seen white Americans do things different. In fact, white Americans with Italian heritage versus white Americans with with American Indian heritage are very different, right? So I
Mhm.
feel like, and that's probably why I ended up being a social worker, which
Mhm.
is interesting. Um, so all roads lead back to parents for me. The schools can do their best or do their worst, but if you're not involved as a parent, then you're not contributing the major
Mhm.
part of what your children need. And
Mhm.
having said that, then I say that relationship is important. So seeing your children as individuals and paying attention to them, watching what they do, how they do it, why they're doing it, and figuring out how you can connect with them is going to be able to get you the best results and get them the best results at them developing who they are. So
Mhm.
having these 3 children that I had that are adults now, they were very different personalities. Like I'm even seeing my 1-year old, and I'm like, okay, I see little things in her that she might be a little bit more confident than I remember, or I remember one being that confident. But
Mhm.
then his personality is this way, and then I'll see this other thing in her. So I'm just kind of figuring her out, but paying attention, right, is so important. And so with the 3 that are on this side already, it's really watching them as individuals and not grouping them into a one size fits all cookie cutter type of thing, or also not grouping them into what I want them to be, what I
Mhm.
what I see them, what I see in them, or what dictating to them what they should be doing, but letting them lead me in some ways as to who they are or who they were
Mhm.
becoming. That's
Mhm.
important.
That's interesting because I can think back to my experience. One of the things that uh, I feel that made life challenging when I was coming up through this time frame is that was a piece that I didn't feel that I had from my mom.
Yeah.
And she's passed now, so I can't go have these conversations with her like
Right.
face to face to inquire. But I remember frequently feeling like I had to live in a box that she created for me.
Yeah.
And like I could be a musician, which music is my passion. I have my degree in music, it's my avocation. But it was, you can be she actually was a professional violinist, so that was also my tie to her. That was our connection.
Nice.
But it was, you can be a musician but you can't play percussion, you can't play brass.
Okay. Yeah.
And so it was like, okay, you can do what you want, but here's the box that you still have to live within.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that in my engagement with families, my own family, but also in the families that I've worked with over the years, I see that happens a lot because of the fears that parents have.
Yeah.
Right? Like you were talking in the last conversation to your 5-year-old, she's like, "Mommy, you don't trust me." And you're like, "No, I trust you, but I don't trust the world with you."
Right.
Fast forward 7 or 8 years, "Mommy, you don't trust me." You're right, because I don't know who the hell you are at this
Yeah.
point, because you've been taken over by aliens, right?
Figure
So
that out. Yeah.
to
Exactly.
your point of like, I don't trust the world with you. The world
Yeah.
is a scary place. There are many things that we need to educate our kids about, that we need to advocate for them about, and that we need to protect them from to the extent that we can, right? So like those
Absolutely.
boxes
Yes.
are necessary, right?
Yes.
In some fashion. How do you know when one of those boxes is restrictive?
So, and I think once again, like paying attention, like I always say that, and in my books, uh, I'm harping on that. Don't sleep on this job as a parent. You cannot sleep on this job. Don't think what you put in place yesterday, or the conversation that you had yesterday, or the things that you did yesterday, that's going to take care of today. No, today is a totally different day. Every day is a
Mhm,
different day. And so being in tune 100%, and it's a lot of work.
mhm,
And I think as they change, because I remember also my daughter, and all of my kids kind of, my oldest son doesn't talk as much. So I had to really watch and pull some things out. He's that kid that if I said, all right, do this, and then, he'll go do this. The second one, I'll say, go do this, and he'll go, well, I did this, and I started to do that, but it didn't feel like that's what I should have done. So I ended up doing this other thing. But then guess what happened? This. So that was a very different child, right? And I was able to work with him when, he was veering off the path, but it seemed like it would work, and we'd do it, or, he had to come back. And then my daughter, who was just like, I want to be a hairdresser, I want to be a doctor, and I want to be a cook. I was like, okay, great. I love the doctor. I'm the mother, right? Oh my God, I'm gonna have a doctor for a child. And then a year later, she's like, I said, yeah, because you want to be a doctor. No, I don't want to do that again, but I want to do hair. Okay. So me, the mother who was thinking, oh God, it would be awesome to have a doctor as a child, because it's crazy, right? We're human beings. Um, I had to then adjust to, look, she doesn't want to be a doctor. Get over it. Okay,
mhm,
not your life. And so, how do I, I set her up for some beauty school stuff, and I got her a beauty school summer camp thing. And then she didn't want to be a hairdresser. So then I got her summer camp cooking. I got culinary summer camp, and I did all the. My daughter's an actress. She's a trained actress. She went to New York and trained as an actress. She became Miss Universe Cayman Islands. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and that was just an
mhm,
example that I had to follow her. I had to follow her lead. I had to follow, my second one, he has a master's degree in environmental engineering. He's the guy that was always outside on his bike, you know.
mhm.
Um, and my oldest one, he has his degree in information technology, and just brilliant. Graduated with almost a 4.0 average in college, and it was just following them. And literally, as a parent, that is your job, to just follow where they're going.
Mhm.
And I think that's where that fine line comes in, where you start identifying it. But if you kind of think, okay, I got this covered, we had this conversation, we did this, we're good. All right, you're good over there, good, I'm gonna be over here doing this. Not gonna happen.
Yeah, this is not a cruise control environment.
Absolutely. And the thing with your mom, which was interesting, I think in her mind, because sometimes it's that they're trying to protect us, but sometimes
Mhm,
they're not seeing us as individuals. So
mhm,
she's a successful violinist. So, that's classical music. So that's her idea of being successful in music. But the
mhm,
bass and percussion, so what are you going to do with your life then? Well, I'm going to play music. Well, in her mind, that's not music to her,
mhm,
wherein that would have been fine for you. So to nurture that in you and
mhm,
foster that in you,
mhm.
you could have been successful in that, because that's what you loved, and the possibilities.
Right.
Because I think we really want to protect our kids, but sometimes
Mhm,
we just don't understand. And I
right.
think we need to take our lead from them also as they
Mhm,
get older, and respect that they know something too. And remember, we're raising adults. We're
right.
raising them to be adults.
Well, and I'm seeing a shift, having worked with families and kids for 25 years myself, I'm definitely seeing a shift from early on in my career where there was still a more pervasive mentality, it felt like, of I'm mother, I know best, or I'm the parent, I know best. And I think there's some cultural implications there as well,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But now it seems like there's a shift, maybe in the last decade or so, away from you have to go to college
Yeah.
to, okay, going to New York and becoming a professionally trained actress. That's not necessarily a 4-year college degree route. It can be. There are some schools that
Right.
is their specialty,
Right.
but
Right.
or going, hey, you really love cars and tinkering, and college will always be there, but go to technical school and become an auto mechanic.
Right.
There's
You can
an
own your own
opening.
shop.
Exactly. There's an
Yeah.
opening of minds, it seems, in the last decade or so, especially with
Definitely.
a lot of the challenges we've seen with like the college loan crisis that we've had and everything,
Right.
and
Right.
this year's debacle with the FAFSA, which is just
Right.
causing heartache upon heartache. Like there's a lot of families going, maybe a traditional 4-year to go to become and then post grad, like for attorney, to become a doctor or an attorney or
Yeah.
whatever. Like we're opening our perspectives on those types of
Yeah.
things. And so I
Definitely.
think this conversation is super pertinent because I think that concept is scary to those of us who grew up in a space of you go to school, you get a good job, and then you're good, right?
Right.
And
Right.
our generation, even like yours and mine, is like in between. Like the golden handshake, the company man doesn't exist for our generation, and it sure
Right.
as heck doesn't exist for the kids coming up now. One
Yeah.
of the interviews that we had recently was with a professional who helps kids figure out what direction they want to go professionally, or at
Yeah.
least narrow it down, because we've also got this crazy idea that you've got to have it figured out at 17 or 18, which is just
Listen,
ludicrous, right?
absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
he made a point that as of today, April 9th, 2024, that of the jobs that will exist in 2025, a mere 11 years from now,
Right.
75% of them don't even exist yet.
Right.
And
Wow.
yet we're trying to put kids in a space of like, figure it out, right? And
Yeah.
we're coming at it from a mentality of like 4-year degree is the way to go. I love
Yeah.
your perspective of going like, let's let the kid lead,
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
bumpers on the bowling alley as necessary, but let them drive this bus.
I love that. Be bumpers on the I love that. I love the way you said that because that's exactly right. Let them lead and you just kind of help center them. Right? So I'll tell you for what you just go ahead. You're going to say something?
I was just gonna say, or it's like when you're teaching them to drive, be like, there's the curb. Maybe they go up over it, but you warn them it was
Right.
there.
Right. So two things I want to say. So one thing, I worked with a family many years ago. 20 something years ago, I worked with this family as a social worker, and it was a single mom, and the one of her kids, she had a few children. Um, One of them wanted to be a chef, and he loved to cook, and he was always cooking, always cooking. And he must have told her that he wanted to be a lawyer when he was young. And so I said to her, I said, he really loves to cook. I know this culinary summer camp that we could send him to. I could go with him. You could go with him. It's about 4 weeks, and it's really nice, and you'll get a chance to really feel things out and stuff. And just know he's going to be a lawyer. And she herself like worked as a blue collar worker, and she had quite a few children. So she was just like I said with the doctor thing. She was held on to my son's going to be
Mhm.
a lawyer. So I said, but he has a lot of challenge in reading. So if you're working on him being a lawyer, we're going to have to start working with him to get his reading up to speed. We're going to start working with that homework stuff, getting his grades up. I'm not saying he can't be a lawyer, but there's going to be some stuff you're going to need to do to get him to that point. Because right now he's 13 and he's struggled all this time. It's been what 6, 7 years that he's been struggling with reading, but he wants to cook and he's a great cook. Fast forward to this kid being 20 years old. He ended up in prison, not a lawyer and not a cook. So that's one of my stories that's really bad because, I feel like if we as in the family had focused on let this kid do this thing that he's really good at, that he's going to be amazing at, maybe his road might have been different. So I said that to obviously to say that message. let's work with our kid instead of figuring out what we want and then not doing what we need to do for that to be the reality anyway. What I'm finding a lot in this day that we're in is, and I work a lot with high schools, and I work a lot with high school students that are getting ready to graduate. They have no idea, just like you said, they have no idea what they want to do. But their parents have not been actively involved. So I don't know if it's the new generation that's parenting them versus who was parenting us, or if they just stop because we're no longer thinking about a 4-year degree. So they're at their wits' end. So they've stopped becoming involved in what their children do next. My children had my first child, when he was getting ready to graduate from high school, I remember they used to have, because my house was always filled with people's children, because that's how I parent too. Like, I'm there. I don't know what's happening in your house. I know what's going on here. So y'all come over here. So, when they got to be a certain age, that's what it was about for me. There was a kid that would come over all the time and play. He was a gamer, right? And he'd be playing games with them in their game room. And I started realizing, like, he'd show up early. They'd still be in school, so he'd show up and he'd be there like 2 o'clock and be like, "You're not home yet?" It's like, "Yeah, okay, well, I'll just wait." And so I said, "Oh, aren't you still in school?" He said, "No, I graduated." So he was older than they were, and I didn't realize that. I thought they were all the same age, but he had come from a Spanish country, so I think he ended up being in a different grade than they were. So I started right away. It almost like kicked me in gear that, okay, this is what can happen if you are not working with your child on a plan when they're graduating high school. So it's kind of the same thing, comes back to the latchkey thing. Just because they're bigger, you think that they can take care of themselves, doesn't mean that you no longer need to be there. You absolutely need to be there when they're a certain age to help them navigate their life, because now is the time when they're forming their adult stuff. And so I started to think right away, okay, what are we going to do with my oldest son? His name is David. What are we going to do with David? All right. So I started looking into college. I started to do all the stuff that I had been doing and I had thought about, but I had kind of put on hold, because they were getting up there. And then I said, nope, now I have to physically really kind of walk these roads with him, start making some decisions and get him ready that as soon as he graduates in June. I don't want him even walking around for a few months. Like, he literally needs to walk into something in September. Right. So, and I said, you can figure it out while you're in there.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But not to have that confusion, because now that we're seeing 26-year-olds. I was a single mother of 3 kids at 26. We see 26-year-olds that they don't have a job.
Yeah.
So times are changing. So I think parents need to also realize that they have to be involved this entire time, especially around this time, to not just because it's changed that 4-year degrees are not a big deal. Okay. So what else? What is a big deal? What can they be doing? Everybody cannot be an influencer. Everybody's not going to go viral. Everybody's not going to be a basketball player. Everybody's not going to be an actress. Like all these dreams, because I hear high school kids talking about all these dream jobs. Oh, I'm just going to play. I'm going to play professional football. Okay. What else do you think you're going to do if it doesn't work out? That's always my conversation. It's never, that's not going to work out. It's always, what else are you going to do if it doesn't work out? What else do you like to have them thinking?
Absolutely.
Because what are the chances that I'm speaking to an assembly of 200 kids and 75 of them are going to be professional football players or professional basketball players? No, 75.
Those dreams don't match the statistics.
Right. Exactly. But 75 of them are going to be walking around this world either doing something that they love or something they don't love, or sitting around being very confused. And so this is where we need to be filling in those gaps as parents, but also the other people that are in their lives. If they have social workers, the teachers, the people from church, the neighbors, whoever.
The
Like we
community
gotta be involved.
Yeah. Awesome. Catherine, I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up because we have established that you and I could talk. We have so many things where we agree we could talk forever. But I'm going to wrap this up because I know that you've got places to go and our folks are probably timing out on their time available to listen in. So
Right.
thank you. For those who are tuning in, Catherine did mention that one of the best ways to find her is through LinkedIn or other social, just private messenger. You can get more information about the coaching that she offers and the support that she offers there. Also, tell me the name of the 2 books that you wrote again.
Well, the first one is I'm Somebody's Mama.
Okay.
And the second one is this. This is Single Mama, Powerful,
Uh-huh.
Not Pitiful. And they're both on Amazon, so they're available there. So I'm Somebody's Mama or Single Mama, Powerful, Not Pitiful. But you can just put in my name, Catherine Tyson, and it'll come up.
Awesome. Thank you so very much. This has been fantastic. I've loved the entirety of our time together. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and say over and out. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.